Hi, welcome to the March Tonight. And by the March Tonight, I mean my living room and the homes of some of the performers you're going to see here tonight. This is all new work, and we have been gathering in these Zoom spaces to try to imagine what we might be able to make that would have meaning to you. But until you show up to mirror that back to us, we really don't know what we've got. So be very happy to get any kind of reactions. Put them in the chat. That's always really helpful and welcome. And by all means, go check out the other things at the Marsh. Those sounded like some really great shows you could go see. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our first performer of the evening. Here is Lambeth Sterling.
I want to give you a larger, more inclusive snapshot of my younger self. Because this version of me you are seeing this evening is a dramatic improvement. Yes, it is. I saw Rocky 27 times when I was 23 years old. I think it was the 26th time that I looked over and the guy over there was masturbating, looking at me like that. I just kept watching the film. It was just me and him, and I could kind of understand why he was excited because I thought it was so incredible. You know, the punching and the whole thing. No, it didn't occur to me to be upset, to leave, or even to look behind me to see if he was following me home in New York City. I had to learn to be who I am today. I had to learn to have boundaries, to isolate, to hate human beings. I have come a long fucking way, baby. Somebody told me last week I should work clean. I have spent my whole life learning when and how to say fuck you and unlearning it. Fuck you doesn't work in a marriage either, which is one of the reasons I am telling you not to get an open concept floor plan. Anyway, I thought Rocky was phenomenal. I couldn't figure it out. Did I want to be like Sly? Was it because Sly was like my father? Anyway, that year, of course, he won the Academy Award, not only for, what was it? Well, you know, he wrote it in 4 days. Maybe it was 10 days, and his wife helped him type it. And I didn't have a wife, but I figured I could be like that. I could do it. I could do it. My father was like that. When he was young, he had nothing. He had been dirt poor. And my sister was a beauty queen. Different mother. People told me I should run around and take care of her. But I thought I could be somebody big. I could be somebody big. And look what Rocky did for Adrian. I did still have a huge chip in my front tooth. But I thought, as good as Adrian in that pet store. I thought I could be like Stallone. I could write my own film. But then my roommate was at home and she kept wanting me to come home early every night. And she had been mugged twice. She was so needy. She was scared, and I was not tracking danger. The only danger I was tracking was poisonous snakes, water moccasins. The truth is, I wasn't even tracking water moccasins. Anyway, she was pretty scared, and we were both pretty big, and she had made this food art, which she had everywhere, and she had put it out, and the rats had eaten it up at the center for the lower self where we had met, where we were working on our emotional lives, where absolutely nobody, including her, knew I had a thing for Stallone. Just so you understand a little more about the inner work I did do before I got married. For 7 years during the 1970s, for 7 years, I was running around a huge remodeled barn in upstate New York yelling, "I hate you! I hate you! I hate you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you!" So I was liberating my anger. This is bioenergetics. Alexander Lowen and John Perette. Marvelous cutting edge stuff. I think it was before Primal Scream. I called this the Center for the Lower Self for purposes of anonymity. I went from months at a silent, sometimes chanting ashram to fuck you in a heartbeat. And I highly recommend you skip the damned ashram. During the 3rd year of that intensive inner work, I was living in New York City. Every other weekend, we're running around the barn going, "I hate you! I hate you! I hate you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Use your arms! You're supposed to use your arms! Fuck you! Would you like to stand up and try this now? Let's try it. Listen, Shark Tank fans, someone should start a franchise where people yell and scream like this, hit huge pillows with enormous rubber bats, and break plates against a wall. We need one of these in every town. I am serious. You would make a fortune. I had a dream the other night that this whole learning to live your life in this body with all this inner work thing is like learning to fly a plane. Now, bioenergetics is like you're in the plane and you're going to turn it on for the first time. The propellers are whirring. By the way, doing bioenergetics without telling a really smart, licensed therapist what you're up to in your life is like turning on your plane and taking off up into the clouds with absolutely no knowledge of the steering wheel thing and all the instruments. You don't even have your hands on the wheel. So I'm liberating my anger. I'm getting better all the time. I have so much energy. I can do. I can do. I can do. So I got a job in film because I decided Rocky was so helpful to everyone. Everyone could see that a person could become someone, and Stallone had gone from nothing. He had gone from Hell's Kitchen in New York, the poorest of the poor in New York, and look at him now. He won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and he was wearing his high heels and everything, but you couldn't see that on the stage. So I got a job collating papers with one of the best documentary houses in New York. And then I would sweep the floors after hours. After that, I would go to a theater and watch Rocky every night. At the end, when Rocky wins the championship, boom, 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 and his eyes are almost swollen shut and bloody. He says, you Asian, where's your hat? This is nothing like life in a marriage, in my experience, ladies and gentlemen. This is not. This is fictional work. Boy, do I miss the girl who thought partnership and marriage were going to be like that. Oh man, do I miss her. I wish I were not so much improved. Anyway, it was all I could do to keep up with my fascination, and keeping something secret makes it a lot more fascinating. I saw Rocky 2 27 times as well. Of course, I told absolutely no one. This was not something you would tell anyone who worked in documentaries, because these are the intellectual elite. These filmmakers were fabulous. They were so smart. And here I was from North Carolina, where they had big brass spittoons for chewing tobacco at every window at the post office. I didn't know anything anyway. I didn't know what a bagel was until I was 20. And my boss, who was one of the top filmmakers in New York, was wearing this big, he was Jewish, but he was wearing a big scarf around his head every day so he could look exactly like Yasser Arafat, just to upset everyone, or so it seemed to me. And in North Carolina, they don't do that kind of thing. When we watch TV in North Carolina, we just smile at the TV. I don't remember my parents ever saying one critical thing about the television or about anything we saw on the television. And we missed the night the Beatles were on TV. We were just not. We weren't very cool. And believe me, no one was doing imitations of Yasser Arafat. Of course, people do wear sheets if they're in the Klan. Every morning I watched a lot of TV because my mother was at work, and because Cary Grant, the statuesque African-American woman who was doing all the cooking, the cleaning, the childcare, and the coleslaw, put a little sugar in it, was in love with my baby brother, white sugar. And had I received more attention, believe you me, I would not be telling you any of this now. If I was good, if I played outside, which just happened to be near the road, Cary would slather a piece of white bread with butter, then sprinkle sugar on it. White sugar, every few hours. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the way to train a child. I just found Cary, her obituary. It said she had, after we left town, 6 kids, 17 grandchildren, 39 great-grandchildren, and 13 great-great-grandchildren when she died. She had a much bigger impact on life than I am ever going to have, although I am trying to have an impact on you. Don't worry, nothing I've said has impacted anyone yet. By the way, I don't like the word hope. It's not the useful point of reference people seem to think it is. No, it's not that learning to be present is the answer, in my opinion. Meditation is fabulous, practicing TM the way Ellen DeGeneres does, with a concerted effort to make a great deal of money. Anyone who thinks making money can't make you happy is not paying attention. I have always been grateful for Cary. Thank God my mother worked. After we moved and lost Cary, my mother would come home and she would make frozen broccoli and frozen peas, and I would try to roll them down my throat without chewing them, and she would catch me. But we were not very critical people. We didn't know she couldn't cook. Everyone has noticed now that I cannot cook a goddamn thing. Once when I suggested inviting some people over for dinner, my boyfriend said, "What are you going to serve? Raisin bran with whole milk or raisin bran with skim milk?" Waylon knows if I start toward the stove, he just says it immediately. "Let me do that. Let me do that. You wash the dishes." So my mother, she couldn't cook, and she was petite. She had her hair up in a French twist. She had her hair all up in a beehive because Twinkle across the street, her name was really Shine. Her name was really Sparkle, would do her hair every week, and she would spray it. Shh, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And then my mother would take pink toilet paper every night and wrap it up and put a pink net over that and go to sleep. She would lie down just like this because she didn't want to mess it up. I don't know about my parents' sex life. And somebody said cockroaches got into somebody else's bun, but there wasn't any proof of it. And somebody said the way they knew was that blood was coming down her head. So I didn't come from a very critical environment. And here I was with the top of the top, the cream of the cream in New York, secretly going down to the theater to watch Rocky in the middle of Hell's Kitchen. During the fight scenes, the kids in the theater are jumping up and down and up and down. I felt the same way. So my counselor at the Center for the Lower Self, when I finally told him about this fascination with Stallone, "See, this is the reason you should never get yourself an unlicensed therapist." Instead of saying, "Why are you so obsessed with a character like Stallone?" he said, "Why don't you write a review and send it to him?" Perhaps not what a well-educated, licensed individual would suggest. Why don't you contact the object of your obsession? So I wrote a one-page review saying how inspiring it all was and sent it to Stallone. By this time, 3 years later, I had worked my way up and I was production managing and associate producing Pepsi-Cola and Citibank commercials. My extremely glamorous older sister is responsible, at least in part, for my success at that time, and that I used to run around and help her. She did a miracle several times a day. I knew what to do for her. You help carry her bags. You create little miracles. Just never say no. Don't let other people say no. Do it now. Film production is the same. They need a little miracle. Something is wrong. Everything is wrong. Do what she taught me to do. Ignore reality. Don't have boundaries. Don't let other people have boundaries. Talk people into stuff. This works not so well with partners who are lying to you. It worked really well for film production in New York. Then I got a job working for the people who make Sesame Street, flying all over the country. And one night I forgot to pay the dinner bill in Montana for a film crew, and they had the police out after me. Otherwise, it went really well. Then I got a job doing short films with the original cast of Saturday Night Live. I am working with the best in New York. And with whom do I want to work? I was doing my affirmations every day and going down to Reverend Ike's church in Harlem on Sunday to bone up on my positive thinking. He had a blue Bentley. By the way, one of the famous Southern white TV ministers is, as we speak, stealing Reverend Ike's material. I ran a great deal because Rocky ran in the films, and you evidently have to do that to create a magical life. I did my affirmations and my visualizations to claim my divine destiny, which is coming to me now, right now. I was wearing my Expect a Miracle button, not stuff I learned at the Center for the Lower Self. This is that real gentle kind of inner work. This was a little like polishing the wings of my plane using the wrong products while telling myself I knew how to fly. This might not go deep enough and might not help you fly a plane, might not help you get into or stay in the air at all. At this point, the plane is doing rolls while I am sitting on my hands doing my affirmations with my eyes closed. Perhaps not what people like to hear. Reverend Ike used to say, I have been poor and I have been rich, and rich is better. Well, I have been naive and I have been bitter, and bitter is better. My new motto, by the way, is bitter. Yes, we can. So I called Stallone's office in LA and I said, may I speak to his assistant? And the lady said, I'll patch you through to his house. And the assistant said, yes, they were aware of the review I had sent, saying all about how inspiring he was. I could hear him in the background. I asked if I might come out and work on a film out there, and she said, he's going to be shooting in New York. So I went down to the producer's office. They said I could not have an interview. Yes, by the way, I know the camera is shaking. This is cinema verite. You are wondering if I am embellishing any part of this story. Yes, I have made the color of the toilet paper on my mother's head pink.
Yay. Yay. Yay.
Hello, world, and welcome to Fantasy Island. I always wanted to say that. Actually, welcome to Kimberly's room. I got this hat from a taco stand in front of a venue where I was working. Isn't it beautiful? And here are my Frida Kahlo earrings. I love Frida. I mean, you think, look, think. Anyway, people would say, I'm appropriating culture. I say, yes, I am. I'm appropriating this culture because I like it and I do what I want. Imitation is the best form of flattery. Speaking of cultural appropriation, when I was a little girl, my mother used to read us stories, classical children's literature, most of which would probably be canceled by now. She would read us Snow White, canceled, Dr. Seuss, canceled recently, Tom Thumb, probably canceled, and Winnie the Pooh. I love Winnie the Pooh. This is my current winter coat. I call it my Pooh hide coat. It's probably, that's terrible. I know it's a bad joke, but you know, I'll probably get canceled for that. But my favorite tales were the tales of Uncle Remus, the Disney version. Uncle Remus tales, not the ones that were cleaned up proper English, the ones that were in what we call dialect. And the Disney's tales were somewhere between the original ones, which were called Uncle Remus. This is going to be backwards, but it's okay. His songs and his sayings, the folklore of the old plantation. And my mother would read these tales to us in dialects, and I love to hear it. I'll read a little bit. My favorite one was the Tar Baby. One day, Brer Fox and Brer Bear was sitting around the woods talking about the way Perette was always cutting up capers and acting so fresh. I don't like the way Brer Rabbit go lippity-clippity down the road, say Brer Bear. Someday I'm going to catch Brer Rabbit and knock his head clean off, say Brer Bear. Blam, blam. I just love to hear this. And she would read it to us. And Brer Rabbit got all caught up with in the Tar Baby, and he figured out how to get out. So it was kind of a story for us to learn when you got in a bad situation, you think and get yourself out. And it taught us about how crazy it was down there in the South, because we were born in Louisiana. And we had this picture, like in the Brer Rabbit tales, they had Mr. Man, and there was this old white man, and Brer Rabbit was always fooling him. So we were learning about that type of life down there. And I learned about slavery and enslaved people from these tales. And one day my mother, I said, you know, Mama, why do you talk like that? She said, it was a code. It's called dialect, not Ebonics. I don't know anything about Ebonics, but we called it dialect. It was a dialect of the English language. And it's the way we talked in code to each other so that Mr. Man didn't know what we were talking about. And this just made me so proud. And I couldn't wait to go to school to learn how to read this dialect that they spoke of. And I was in the first grade at the colored elementary school, which was named after one of my relatives, H.V. Adams. And my first grade teacher was Miss Robinson. Now, I don't know if she was related to us or not, but it seems like everybody was related in some kind of way. And we were reading these books. Y'all remember these? The Dick and Jane, Learn to Read with Dick and Jane books? Miss Robinson, Kimberly, can you read page 6 to 7, 6 to 10? Okay, Miss Robinson. Dick, look, Dick, look. And we would read in a sing-song voice. Oh, look, Dick. Oh, see, Dick. Oh, see, Dick. Look, Sally, look, see, Jane. So I'm reading this and I'm going along and I'm starting to comprehend because, it's called reading and comprehension. So I'm going, look, Dick, see, Spot. And I'm looking and I'm seeing these people. These people look like this. And I don't know nobody that looked like this, And I'm reading and starting to slow down. And I look at the back of the book and there's these little blonde haired girls and the blonde haired mother and the little boy called Dick, which we thought was hilarious. Like, why they gonna call him that? We won't even go there. I was like, this don't even look like my family. This is what my family look like. That's Betty Lou, that's my mama. That's Greta, my little sister. And that's me. I didn't see nobody look like this. And I was starting to feel some kind of way about it. And I started slowing down in my reading. And Miss Robinson wanted to know, Kimberly, why are you reading? You used to read so much better. And I said, I don't know, Miss Robinson. I don't know. It was because I started looking at those pictures. And there were rumors that other people were coming to our school, like the white folks was coming to our school. And, we're kids, we don't know. And I'm starting to feel some kind of way about it. And people came to our school. And all of a sudden I had people that didn't look like me because I was taught by everybody that looked like me. All my authority figures looked like me. And then all of a sudden I had these people that didn't look like me. That was my principal and my teacher didn't look like me. And I was starting to get a little nervous about it. And so there was a time I just didn't want to get up and go to school. So my mother would call, Kim, get up, time to go to school. And I would go in the covers like, I don't want to go to school. I'm tired. And then I would put my foot out the bed, bam, bam, hit the floor 2 times to try to act like I was getting up. And if I was really, really lucky and my mother, wasn't tired, she would quote this poem to us. She would stand in the door and she would say, with her hands on the hips, and she would say, Lies, bless the Lord. Don't you know the day is abroad? If you don't get up, you lazy scamp, there's going to be trouble in this camp. And we would sit up because we loved this poem. My little sister Greta was 4. She didn't have to go to school. But if I come across this floor, you won't find no time to snow. Daylight all are shining through and you are burning up the daylight too. Lies, don't you hear me call? And I was just like, oh man, gotta get up. We get up. She's like, mind yourself and wash your face. Don't you splatter all the place. And I would go and wash my face. We were started acting it out. She would get us going, get me going. And then she'd say, take this comb and comb your hair. It looks just like a feather bed, but I couldn't comb my hair. She would comb it because she would press the bows and tie them out cute on our hair. And she would play with us in the morning. And we would go to the table and she would say, sit down at the table there. Just you whimper if you dare. Fold your hands and bow your head. Wait until the blessing said. So I would fold my hands and bow my head. And she started, Lord, have mercy on our souls. I would go for the toast. Don't you dare to touch them rolls. Bless this food with guan to eat. And I would start kicking my feet. You should steal. I see your feet. Just you try that trick again. Give us peace and joy. Amen. And I would tell my mother, I don't want to go to school, Mama. And she said, this little boy couldn't go to school. Why? Because they didn't want us to learn how to read and write. I said, why? Because if you can read and write, that makes you strong, makes you smart. Like Burr Rabbit, never stop learning. She told me to never stop learning. One day I asked my mama, Mama, what's a wench? Grandma's always calling us wenches. My mother said, where'd you hear that from? And it's wench. Grandma's almost calling us. She used to say, y'all wenches know y'all ain't supposed to be playing in y'all school clothes. Get in here and change it to y'all play clothes. Because we had play clothes, we had school clothes, we had winter clothes, we had summer clothes. Everything got packed away. And she would just say, y'all ain't supposed to be playing in y'all school clothes. Like that, wenches. My mother would say, she shouldn't be calling y'all that. Didn't do any good. Because grandma was delicate. And she was the youngest of 9 children. And she was sensitive, And she would disappear sometimes. And she'd go to the hospital in Pineville, which was a mental hospital, because she'd had a breakdown. It must have been really, really a lot of pressure. I think a lot of people had PTSD down there because it was just so crazy. And they gave people shock treatments down there. So I learned how to cuss from Granny, unbeknownst to her. One day I decided I need some candy. My mother had bought us piggy banks. My Greta had a pink one, I had a blue one. We were supposed to be saving for a rainy day. Greta had all her pennies. I had a big old hole in mine because I was always stealing my pennies for myself. One day I told Greta, I said, I'm going down to the gas station and I'm going to buy some candy. Greta's like, ooh, you know, Mama told us not to ride past the stop sign down there. There's white folks down there. I said, I ain't scared of no white folks. And besides, it's only a little while. Greta, where'd you get them pennies? I said, don't you worry about it. I want to come. You too little to come. My grandma used to call her me too. Everything she wanted to do, I did, she wanted to do. Me too, Kim, me too. She wanted to do it. Grandma said, if Kim jump off the bridge, you're going to jump off of the bridge too? So anyway, she said, I want to come. I said, you can't come. She said, if you don't let me come, I'm going to tell Granny on you. I said, if you tell Granny, I'm going to knock your head clean off, blim blam. So I take off on my bike. It was a blue Winn with a banana seat. I'm just riding, lippity clippity down the road, get to the stop sign, turn right, head off towards the gas station. Greta stopped at the stop sign. She stopped looking at me and I'm just going, you know, get to the gas station, going in there to buy some candy. And the guys down there look like Popeye. So I guess that's why I wasn't scared of them, because, you know, they look like Popeye and I like Popeye. So I went in there and I got my candy, my Mary Janes, you know, some of them were 2 cents for, you know, 2 for a penny. Counted out my candy, put it on the counter. And the man said, can I help you, young lady? I like to buy this candy, sir. Okay, that'll be 10 cents. I counted out my pennies and gave him my 10 cents. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. He had a twinkle in his eye. He was a real nice man, Popeye guy. I got on my bike. I thought I had gotten away with something. I'm riding up the hill, get up to the top of the hill. Granny's standing in the yard with a switch. So I got a whooping and got all kind of wenches that day. Needless to say, the candy got confiscated. And I just rolled my eyes at Greta because she was always doing something like that, telling on me, caused me to get a whooping. And I was going to call her a wench, but I didn't because I didn't want to get another whooping. I just sang, tattletale, tattletale, hang your britches on a nail. And just ignored her all day. She always doing something like that, telling on me, Greta. We had some cousins that lived in the country. These were our country cousins. And they had this big old house. I think it was kind of like a slave cabin or something. I remember it being unpainted and it had an outhouse. I told my mother, I'm not using no outhouse. It's stinky in there and I might fall in. My mother said, you gonna use it if you have to go to the bathroom? I said, I'll use the pot, because they had pots, you know, like you can go and you use the bathroom, you dump it out the next day. And they had chickens running around everywhere. And they would catch one of those chickens and snap his head clean off and the chicken's running around. I was just horrified by this whole idea of live chickens, because our chickens came in a package. I don't know where I thought they came from. And we would go into a little town that was called Marouge. And that's when I remember seeing the signs. I was a little girl. It was like probably 72, 73. And I saw those signs that said for coloreds only. And I didn't understand. I seem to remember seeing 2 lines for soft serve ice cream. But Papa lived down there. We didn't have to get their ice cream because Papa had a big old white house, indoor plumbing, antique furniture, and he had lace dollies on the furniture and lace curtains, and he owned the store in the colored folks neighborhood, and he would give us ice popsicles and push-ups. He was an old man by then. I got a picture of him right here. This is Papa. His name is Jasper Willie Scott. He was born in 1881. This is my grandmother's father. He would ride a horse from town to town in the area, and he would teach the colored children how to read. And this was his wife, Maddie Cotton Scott. She started the first school for the education of colored children in Beekman, Louisiana. She played the organ and she composed music for his classes, his graduating classes. They're the one with the lace curtains. And this is his father, George H. Scott, born in 1856. Ain't he a handsome fella? This is where we get part of our Scottish blood. And he was a free man of color. And he was a blacksmith, and some of his work is still in the local museum. And he played the fiddle, and he would go from neighborhood to neighborhood playing for different parties. And he would take his wife, and this is his wife, Betty Booker Scott. Don't I look like her? I look just like her. Like them eyebrows, see them eyebrows? He would take her along with him. And he was a free man of color. And his rumor is she was an enslaved person, and he purchased her freedom. And they got married and had 9 children, one of which is my grandmother's father. These are the pictures we have in our family of them. See how they're dressed, beautifully dressed, aren't they? Her gold earrings, pearls. They made a name for herself. She is her picture's in the film, The Great Debate with Denzel Washington. There was a scene in there where they were having dinner and her picture was on the mantle. So claim to fame. This is my grandma, Betty II. She's named after her grandmother. This is the one that used to call us wenches. This is our little cottage that we lived in. This is my mother, Betty III, Betty Lou. Ain't she pretty? You don't mess with Betty Lou even now. I don't mess with her. So I remember being in the country and we used to catch lightning bugs, and we call them, they're like fireflies. We call them lightning bugs, and we put them in tissue and so that they could light up in the night. It was warm, and we had these little tea lights, so we would go around. And when it was warm outside, we sleep on pallets, what we call pallets, which is when you put things on the floor. I think that was left over from slavery days. And our pallets, we had these quilts. And I didn't know at the time that these were directional quilts. I remember some of the things that were in them. Like we had this one. I looked it up. We had this one. This was the North Star. These are little panels. And this means follow the North Star, the star north to Canada. And I remember having this one. This is called Flying Geese, meaning follow the geese to flying geese north. And I seem to remember this one is called Bow Ties, meaning you're looking pretty haggard. Somebody's gonna bring you some clothes. You don't want to be looking like a runaway. My family would have this one because they love clothes. Remember all those clothes we had? We had this one. This was very frayed. It's called Log Cabin. And that means there's a safe place nearby. We didn't have this one though. This is a crazy one called Drunkard's Path. And that means beware there's slave catchers in the area. Go back to where you came from before. It was like a little game. You know, they would fold them, you know, like this on the fence, like they were drying them to give people instructions on how to get out. We were always trying to get out. Isn't that something? So I'm in the 4th grade with Miss Zamito. This is my first white teacher. Miss Zamito, I remember thinking she was so pretty. She was really, really fair. You know, she had dark hair. I think she was probably Italian, and she wasn't from the South because she wasn't like the other people. She kind of talked like Katharine Hepburn. She didn't have a Southern accent. she would be like, Kimberly, would you please read page 171 to 173 of our history books? So we had this history book. I mean, it was probably not this one exactly, but something like that, grades 3 through 5, the complete book of United States history. Kimberly, would you read page 171 through 173? Yes, ma'am. Slavery in America. For a long time in this country, slavery was accepted. George Washington, this nation's first president, owned over 200 slaves. Thomas Jefferson, who in the Declaration of Independence wrote, all men are created equal, had over 180 slaves. In fact, 8 out of the first 12 presidents were slave owners. So I'm reading this, huh? What? Slavery North and South. It was different in the South. The great giant farms were called plantations. And I'm going like, where am I? The South? So I'm starting to feel some kind of way about this. Southern slave owners did everything they could to control their slaves. For example, slaves could not marry without their owner's permission. Slaves could learn to read or write. My mother had told me that. Slaves couldn't own property. Sometimes they couldn't even name their own children. An owner would choose the baby's name instead. And I'm starting to read this. I'm 10 years old and I'm not feeling this. I'm starting to feel kind of crazy. Look at this picture. This is me in the 5th grade. Don't I look crazy? My mother had pressed and tied those bows, and she said, Kim, don't jump rope. We're gonna have pictures today. Keep your bows in your hair, but Kim gonna jump rope. The bows came out. Mrs. Amito don't know how to tie bows, so she tied them in all crazy like this. My mama was so mad when she saw this picture. But I think I was a little traumatized. Don't I look traumatized? I mean, that's different from when the bows were on straight like this. These were our school clothes, by the way. So, starting to feel things. And we said in rows, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, maybe 4 rows. I mean, at least they didn't put all the white people in the front and the black people in the back. They put them in alphabetical order, some semblance of trying to be equal. And my seat fell right next to Kevin Bryant. Oh my God, he was so cute. I'm gonna show you Kevin. He is the one with the heart around him. See him right there? Little blonde hair, blue-eyed guy. I think he was Irish. I just thought he was so cute. I think he thought I was cute too. He was my first foray to the other side. He wasn't my first boyfriend. He was just my first white one. So Kevin could color so good. And I was sitting next to him and I was like, Kevin, how do you color like that? And he said, you just take the color, you lay down one row, and then you come and you lay down another one on top and you make these waves. I was looking at a drawing I did in architecture school. I don't know if you can see it, but you see those waves and stuff around there? I don't know if you can see it, but Kevin taught me how to do that. I still color like that. And we would sit next to each other and we talk. And I said to him one day, I was like, Kevin, I don't like this slavery stuff. What you think about it? He's like, I guess I don't think about it. And I said, well, I do. How can people be so mean to other people? You ain't like that, are you, huh? No, it sounds pretty bad. I'm not like that. I said, me either. And so we talk, and sometimes we talk on the playground. And one day we were talking, and Kevin's older brother, Patrick, came up to us and said to us, y'all can't play together no more. I think it was the way he said, y'all. And he took Kevin by the hand and led him away. And Kevin and I just looked at each other, I didn't understand. And it broke my heart. That's it for this part. Thank you.
Yeah. Yay. Yay.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
That was awesome, Kim.
Thank you.
Kim, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Girl.
That's it.
Kim, you were amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Caprice.
Love the bows.
Good job, Kim.
Can't get in there though.
What?
I can't get in there.
Born in 1950 May, the other part of the country from Kim. You can see my face. I'm going to try to tell the other half of the US story. I'm born in Glendale Memorial Hospital, Glendale, California. If you don't know what a sundown town is, find out. Glendale was one. When I am 3, my parents buy a brand new house with this huge yard, all dirt and a big oak tree. The rest is just bushes. My daddy loves to garden. And when he's out there working to build walls and be able to plant things and make planters, I can ride my bike anywhere in all that dirt and make a playhouse under that big oak tree. But when daddy isn't there, I have to go inside to be safe. And I go in my room usually where I have lots of papers and books and puzzles and dolls. I play with things, but sometimes I read my favorite books that mommy and daddy read to me because I always ask them to point to each word so I can learn them. My favorite book right now is Little Black Sambo. And with my, it's hard to see, but there he is. And I like him because his mommy makes clothes for him, just like my mommy does. But his look much more exciting to me. But what's really good for him is that he can go out all by himself any day he wants on his adventures. And the book says he lives in a jungle and shows trees with these big leaves, lots bigger than my little tiny oak leaves. And he runs into these tigers, 4 of them. They're big, funny looking, but they say they're going to eat him. But he's smart. And Little Black Sambo says that if he gives them some of his clothes, well, that maybe they won't eat him. So his clothes all go to the poor tigers until they look at each other and they get jealous and start thinking one looks better than the other. Before they fight, luckily they put their clothes on the ground so Little Black Sambo can put them on and go home so his mommy isn't mad. When I am 5, we get a TV. And pretty soon my favorite show is Amos and Andy. They're big, not little like Little Black Sambo, but they look like him. And they play jokes on each other. But they never get mad. They just end up laughing. Also get a stove that year. With it, a Betty Crocker cookbook for boys and girls. But all the kids on the cover and in the book look just like me. And so does Betty Crocker. And most of her recipes call for her cake mixes. Mommy has some up on the shelf. And every box has a picture of Betty Crocker. She's smiling, but her smile is a little tight. And I think that if I didn't make one of her recipes right, she would be mad. But the next to her boxes are the ones I like better because I like pancakes. And it's Aunt Jemima's pancakes and her picture's on the box. And she is much prettier. She looks like Amos and Andy with big happy cheeks and big smiles, and I like the color of her skin better. And she wears this nice red scarf around her head that's bright. I just like to climb into her lap, and I'd much rather learn to cook from her. She'd just laugh if I made a mistake. I'm sure she would. When I'm 6, I have to go to school, and I hate it because I have to listen to what the teacher wants me to do. I can't just go in my room or into the kitchen to do anything I want. And I know how to read. And so school is very boring. And I can see the teacher is a little bit mad when I have my work done when other people have barely started. So she makes a deal that I can go to the office and help Mrs. Johnson. And we do fun things. And sometimes I read to her and she likes it. But when I hear the air raid siren, I know I have to run back to my class and get underneath my desk with all the other children under their desks, because there are these bad Russians who want to kill us and they want our free country. And so I have to do my part and drop under my desk. But worse than that, we have to watch this dumb movie called The House in the Middle. It starts with this fake kind of cloud and a man in a dull gray suit who's white, who comes out and says, "That was a nuclear blast, but we will show you how to save your houses and your families." And he shows us these 3 little houses. I don't say that they look like the outhouses on my grandpa's farm in Nebraska. And I don't tell him that that big puff of smoke, that just looks like the smoke when there's a fire in the hills near my house. But he goes on and he goes to the house on the left. "See, I can put my knife into the wood. This wood is rotting and it's not painted. And there's all this trash around the front steps and the door. This looks like a slum." I don't know what a slum is, but I can tell from that twist of his tongue and his lips that it's not good. Then he goes to the house on the right and the house in the middle and says, "The house on the right is not much better, but a little paint and not too much stuff on the steps outside, but inside there is stuff all over the chairs and the tables, newspaper everywhere, and dishes that are dirty in the sink. Not safe, but we'll see in the house in the middle. Everything is neat and clean." And then there's that puff of fakey smoke again. And sure enough, the house on the left and the house on the right, they burn almost completely. But the house in the middle, just a little smoke. "See, cleanliness will keep you and your family safe from disaster." And when she shuts off the film, the teacher says, "In class, this is why we keep our desks so clean, and we have to keep the room clean, and we pick up things on the playground." I'm thinking, I don't want the teacher or that boring man to ever see my room, because I like piles of stuff. I think it's fun. I think it makes it interesting. And why put your clothes away? You just might wear some of them again tomorrow. But luckily, my mommy agrees with this man. And her house looks just like that one in the middle. And her space is lots bigger than mine. So hopefully, if those bad Russians bomb us, we will still be safe. When Mommy and Daddy and I go to visit my daddy's family, we have to leave Glendale. And I've heard my mommy tell the neighbor that we are lucky to be in Glendale because we're safe, because it's all white. When we get close to Pasadena, every time my mommy says, You locked the door, didn't you, Paul? All the doors in the car? Because when we get in Pasadena, we have to go across this long street with houses that, well, they look a little like the one that does have paint peeling, and there is some stuff on a lot of the porches and in the yards, and they're not new like our houses. But the happy thing is there's lots of children playing, and I wish I had more children around my house to play with. Is this a slum, Daddy? I don't know where you got that word, Nancy, but it is not a word that I want to use, especially not in this neighborhood. I went to Muir High School with all the mommies and daddies who live in this neighborhood, all the Negro families, and they are doing the very best for their children, just like mommy and daddy do for you. Negro? Does that mean, Daddy, that Amos and Andy and Jemima are Negro? Because they look like these children. Yes, Nancy. And did your friends smile all the time like they do, Daddy? No, Nancy. We're trying to teach you how fake television is. That's just made up pictures. You know how you feel about some of the things you don't want to do at school. That's just what happens when you get old. There's things you won't like to do, and you will not always be smiling, especially if you are Black or Indian or Asian in this country, because life is just harder. I saw it in school, and I saw it in the Navy. Paul, don't you think that's enough orating for today? Summer finally comes. And we go on a trip to Nebraska to visit my Grandpa John on the farm. On the way, we stop where it says Navajo Reservation. Could Susan have lived here? Maybe, says Dad. Daddy goes to the store, and he goes straight to the film department. And there's a lovely lady at the counter who looks like Susan, all growing up. And I think I forgot to tell you that when I was in the 3rd grade, Susan got better the year before this trip. Susan made it better because she didn't look like us. And she had this beautiful black hair. And the girls who were laughing at her one day said that she was Navajo and adopted and didn't belong with us. And I didn't know what Navajo was. But now I say to Mommy and Daddy, could this be where Susan was from? And they do say maybe. Anyway, Daddy is at the counter and says to this woman, I have a brand new camera and I forgot my manual. Do you think there's anybody that knows about cameras? Oh, yes, she says. Paul Wallace in the next village. He can fix anything. He's got the gas station and the garage. He can fix anything. So she says, I can write you directions. Oh, no, just tell me directions. Daddy is very good at directions. When we get to the car, he says, what do you think of that? Navajo Paul Wallace and white Paul Wallace. There were all those Wallaces who came to fight in the American Revolution. You don't know. All those spread across this country, there could be Paul Wallaces of 100 colors. And when we get to the gas station, the Navajo Paul Wallace is almost as handsome as my daddy. And he sees me when I jump out of the car because I'm so tired and so bored with adults. And he says, you look thirsty. You can run across there to the plaza, see the children, and there's a drinking fountain over there. I go toward the plaza and they're playing kickball, my favorite game. The game that Susan and I like to play because she was the only other girl who would play kickball. So I run and think maybe I can play. All of a sudden, they stop the game and they all run to the edge of the plaza. I don't understand it. But Mommy's right behind me to protect me. And she points to the drinking fountain. So I go and I start drinking, and all of a sudden, they're giggling all around the plaza. Now I run to the car. I hurt and I don't understand. You were drinking more loudly than they ever would, says my mother. I don't understand. But maybe if Susan is Navajo, maybe she can explain it to me when I get home. But when we get back to Glendale, Susan is not in Sunday school. Her family moved, Mom says. She was my only friend. She was my best friend. And she's the only girl that would play kickball with me. Now we're all going to look alike again? I hate that school. I want Daddy's Muir School.
Yay.
Yay!
Yay.
Good
Yay.
job. Good job.
Thank you.
I only smile in the dark. My only comfort is the night gone black. I didn't accidentally tell you that. I'm only happy when it rains. During my parents' divorce, I went through a rebellious phase. To be honest, it was probably the last time I was ever really authentic for any length of time. And I was also being a little shit on a regular basis, but I figure I probably earned it. I went to this tiny Christian school that was attached to a mega church basically my whole life. My best friend's name was Sarah, and we thought we were pretty bad. Bad for seventh graders, I mean. I remember every time it rained, I would walk around campus singing that song by Garbage. I'm only happy when it rains. I'm only happy when it's complicated. And though I know you don't appreciate it, I'm only happy when it rains. Hey, I said I was authentic. I did not say I was especially innovative. I remember walking out of the rain into drama class one day. I was wearing this cool brown corduroy coat. Stacey! Ah! My drama teacher yelled at me. Her name was Mrs. Hagmeyer. She was short and fiery, and I absolutely adored her. Stacey, what are you doing? You are drenched. You are going to get sick again. This is why you are always so sick. Mrs. Hagmeyer, I'm sorry. It's just it was raining, and it felt good. Mrs. Hagmeyer taught us all about Stanislavski's golden key. You figure out what your character wants, what motivates them, and then all the action flows out of that motivating desire. It's the key to unlocking the character, right? And I come back to this frequently when I'm thinking about my fundamentalist upbringing. We were taught simultaneously and without a hint of irony that if we trusted the Lord, He would give us the desires of our heart, and that the desires of our heart are evidence of our sinful natures, planted by the devil, probably to lead us straight to hell. We couldn't trust our motivations. And looking back, that is such a profound violation, cutting people off from their I want. But at that moment in time, I just wanted to be mad, and I wanted everybody to know about it. My 13th birthday. I loved my outfit. Corduroy bell bottoms, brown again, with a purple polyester shirt with a photorealistic flower pattern. Mother of pearl buttons. I felt grown up and sleek for the first time. It was a look. And my dad shows up to Benihana late, 3 sheets to the wind. Stacey? Stacey, what are you wearing? That looks like something out of the 70s. What's up with all the tiny little buttons? It's just a shirt, Daddy. Well, I know, but where do you even buy something like that? At the store? Obviously. But what kind of store, Stacey? Is it vintage? Did you go to San Francisco? Did your mother take you to Haight-Ashbury? No, I got it from Wet Seal at the mall. Oh, the mall. You're going to the mall. That's wonderful. Stacey, it's your birthday. You are growing up, but remember, you are always my little princess. Dinner was awkward. He made racist jokes the whole time, and then he lost my little brother in the parking lot when it was time to go home. He thought he lost my brother. My mom and I actually took him home, but Dad was too trashed to even notice. Sarah and I continued our gradual decline into delinquency. We snuck out at night, played with Ouija boards, stole her mom's wine coolers out of the fridge, which she would then drink with our cooler friends while I pretended I was asleep because I was bad, but I was also a big chicken. We were the coolest. One time we snuck onto campus. We were looking for trouble, started testing lockers. All the popular high schoolers forced their lockers to stay unlocked by jamming a pen cap into the lock mechanism. I guess they were too busy shopping at Abercrombie and Fitch to memorize their combinations or something. So we're checking the lockers. Locked. Locked. Bingo. Stacey, whose locker is it? I don't know. And then suddenly, as if dropped from the heavens, a packet of high school soccer photos falls from the top shelf of the locker. Oh, these belong to tiny Christian school royalty, the mega church's senior pastor's son's best friend, except for the times when they were trying to date the same girl, Jessica. It was a whole thing. He was a senior and basically a god to us. But we're bad, remember? So we're gonna fuck him up. The pictures, not the person. So we steal this poor kid's little soccer photos. He's just sitting there, holding the ball in his little uniform, smiling. And we tore them all up. Every single one. Ritualistically ripped his head off of his body over and over and over again. Scattered him all over campus, including in the day drainage ditch in the back. Sarah, we're not supposed to be down here. We're not supposed to be doing any of this. Come on. We were bad. I'd sit in the back of the classroom during science class because that's where the bad kids sit. And one day I noticed this hole in the wallpaper. You know that industrial wallpaper that's kind of rubberized? It says, "We're a school, so don't fuck around, kid. We have washable wallpaper." So I noticed there's this little crack on the corner. And inside the crack in the wallpaper, I see some white stuff. So instead of thinking, I can see drywall through this crack in the wallpaper, my inevitable 13-year-old conclusion is that this white powder is cocaine that someone has stashed in the walls of my middle school life science classroom. And I think I'm ready to move on to the hard stuff because sniffing whiteout occasionally is just not doing it for me anymore. So I spent about 6 weeks scoping out the situation, making sure I could always get that right desk, and surreptitiously just no one noticed. I probably have asbestosis now, but it was worth it because back then I was bad. And Sarah and I, we weren't really into the Jesus stuff anymore. I mean, we still went to youth group and Sunday school and choir tour, but mostly for the boys. And here's the thing, I didn't really understand about choir tour. It wasn't actually ministering to the various churches we were singing at. It was ministering to us. All the sermons our youth pastor would give, they were directed at us to reinforce behavior for the good kids and give us dirty backsliders a chance to get right. Our pastor's name was Jason, and he was probably all of 24 years old at this point, which is completely terrifying to me in retrospect. This was before they called people my age millennials, or even Generation Y, if you remember that one. No one knew who the hell we were, so they just slapped us on the end of Generation X. And Jason took that branding and ran with it. Our youth group was called Extreme Youth Ministries, spelled with an X. He even used it in his sermons. People have branded you with an X. We're there sitting in the back. They've called you nameless and aimless. We are hard. Despite our tastefully coordinated seafoam green choir outfits, we are bad. But I have good news for you. We are bad, angry, and unaffected. With every eye closed and every head bowed as Chris comes back to the piano. I'm bad, Father God. I see before me a generation adrift, a generation who's been told over and over and over again that they don't matter. I'm hard, but I know that is not what you see when you look at them. I'm worthless. I know you see a chosen generation, a holy nation, a peculiar people who are ready to rise up and change this world. Oh, shit. What do I do? I want to go down there. I know there's someone in this audience who feels this call to be a world changer, someone who is ready to claim the mantle of your blessing on their lives. Oh no, it's me. He's talking about me. If you feel this call, please have the courage to answer. Once again, with every head bowed and every eye closed. Tyler, I see you. Close your eyes right now. If you feel this call deep in your heart, I want you to just raise your hand right now. In the privacy of your seat, raise your hand to commit to being a world changer. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. And then Chris starts to sing. Salvation belongs to our God, who sits upon the throne. And if you raised your hand, I'm asking you to make a public confession of your commitment to becoming a world changer. Maybe there's something holding you back. Maybe you're still holding on to sin. Maybe you've never actually given your life to Christ before. Maybe this is your first time. But I have good news for you. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Hallelujah. And unto the Lamb, praise and glory, wisdom and thanks, honor and power and strength. If you feel that call, I'm asking you right now to stand up right now and meet me at this altar. I am fully sobbing at this point. I don't know if it was the Holy Spirit or the production values. And I look to my partner in crime, my Sarah, only to see an empty chair. She beat me to the altar. I run down there to meet him. There's a whole bunch of us. We're all crying and singing and snotting all over each other. Be to our God forever and ever. Be to our God forever and ever. Be to our God forever and ever. Amen. And that's how I ended up on the cover of Charisma magazine, the publication for the denomination of the Assemblies of God International, a poster child for the Lord moving on the hearts of Generation X. I was fired up and ready to change the world. Now, for those of you who aren't already familiar, that was an altar call. The altar is what some churchy folks call the little space between the pews and the pastor, where people usually stand when they get married. In evangelical and Pentecostal circles, there's a certain kind of sermon that is designed to just dredge up all the stuff you feel guilty about, usually sex, drugs, and depression. And then it ends with this huge call for people to physically come down to the altar and have this cathartic experience with God. It harkens back to the altars people used for animal sacrifice. But instead of burning up a sacrificial lamb, you go down there to cry a little bit and burn up whatever sins happen to be troubling you that day. Brecht would have had a field day with it. It's manipulative as hell, and it feels amazing. It's like The Price is Right, but the showcase prize is eternal life. We went hard for Jesus for a long time after that. 6 a.m. prayer, discipleship program, youth conventions. Sarah and I would take turns backsliding, then repenting at other altar calls. She ended up going to a different high school for a while, then a full-time ministry program called Master's Commission. And I ended up going to the tiny seminary that shared a campus with a tiny parochial school I had gone to practically my whole life. I wanted to be a children's pastor until I realized that what I actually wanted was to finally have sex.
Awesome.